Welcome back to the coverage of Artemis I launch here at the Launch Control Center at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I am here with Administrator Bill Nelson, who was on hand for the launch today, which had hoped to be a big moment in history for the Space Center, but instead it'll have to wait for another day. The launch attempt was scrubbed. Administrator, thank you for being here. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling after all of this anticipation and build-up, and then unfortunately couldn't go today?
We don't launch until it's right. And in fact, they've got a problem with the gases going on the engine bleed on one engine. You can't go. There are certain guidelines. And I think it's just illustrative that this is a very complicated machine, a very complicated system, and all those things have to work. And you don't want to light the candle until it's ready to go. I have some personal experience in the crew that I participated in on the 24th flight of the space shuttle. We scrubbed 4 times on the pad.
Okay.
And the 5th try was a flawless mission. We know, had we launched on any one of those scrubs, it wouldn't have been a good day. And so that was Hoot Gibson and Charlie Bolden's crew. And so, this is just part of the space business. And it's part of particularly a test flight. We are stressing and testing this rocket and the spacecraft in a way that you would never do it with the human crew on board. That's the purpose of a test flight.
And you talk about the complexity, and certainly that is the case here, and learning as we make these attempts. In fact, this engine bleed was something that they wanted to see in wet dress rehearsal number 4, didn't get an opportunity for it. So for the hardworking team that is still here actually gathering data from this rocket and its current configuration, any message for the launch team?
I want them to know that they're doing the perfect job that they always do. They're taking an opportunity while that vehicle is still fueled up to work this problem, and they're going to work it. They'll get to the bottom of it. They'll get it fixed, and then we'll fly.
And when we fly, we hope to have all of our guests back. Of course, there were big crowds here for this attempt. A lot of special guests, including Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, was here. Did you keep them briefed on what was happening and what happens next?
Yes. She and I had a good visit. I met her at the airplane. I came straight here to talk to some of the launch control folks, and she is fully briefed on the whole thing. She's very happy to be here. She is an enthusiastic space booster, as is President Biden. So this whole thing will make our country proud.
And Kamala Harris also chairs the National Space Council, so has a big role in our space program here. Senator Nelson, Administrator Nelson, thank you for your time. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
And giving our leadership here to this launch effort. And we'll have to wait for another day. The next availability is September 2nd, though we don't know at this point if the launch team is going to use that. So we'll wait for a press conference roughly 4 hours from now to find out more about it. That's it for now for NASA TV and the Artemis I launch attempt coverage. I'm Daryl Nail signing off. Have a good day.
Did you know that if you were born after 2000, during your entire life there has been someone living in space? That's thanks to the International Space Station, which celebrated its 20th anniversary of continuous human habitation in 2020. You've probably heard a lot about the incredible science that happens on board the station, but the outside is actually prime real estate for all kinds of experiments and technology development too.
The International Space Station is a great platform to demonstrate servicing technology because it provides power, data, there's robotics in space.
With Tech on Deck, we'll be talking about some key experiments that have taken place outside in the harsh environment of space, which will help us advance human exploration.
Nexus is NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Project Division at the Goddard Space Flight Center. The goal of the division is to usher in a new era of more sustainable, affordable, and resilient spaceflight, both near the Earth, around the Moon, and deep into the solar system. Many members of the Nexus team started off with the Hubble telescope servicing missions. We've taken that technology, applied that to robotic servicing.
From robotic refueling missions that will help spacecraft live longer and journey farther to autonomous navigation systems, NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Division has taken advantage of the wonderful opportunity station offers to test new technologies. As we look to exploring our solar system and beyond, and establishing a sustained human presence in space beyond low Earth orbit, many of these technologies will play a key role.
We use the robots in Space Station to demonstrate the technologies needed to enable satellite servicing in the future. We've also used the robots on Space Station to do some of the more repetitive tasks or the dangerous tasks that astronauts shouldn't be doing, like going outside the space station to try to look for ammonia leaks. Robots are very good at moving fine, delicate positions, moving back and forth, doing those sorts of tasks that would be challenging for humans to do.
In order to live in space, astronauts will first need to reach their far-out destinations like Mars. This will require refueling and replenishment of oxygen supplies, things the robotic refueling missions worked to demonstrate on station. They will also need to be able to construct, maintain, and repair their habitats, as well as adapt to unforeseen circumstances.
Because we're in space in low Earth orbit, we have lighting conditions that are representative of objects in space. And so it allows us to launch tools and modules into orbit, put them on the space station, and then use those robotic technologies and all the infrastructure that comes with the space station to mature those technologies in a way that's much, much less expensive than if we try to launch our own satellite and demonstrate those for the first time, not using the space station.
For these endeavors, Nexus has worked with astronaut tools, satellite servicing, and on-orbit assembly and manufacturing will do the trick.
We develop the technologies that are needed to advance exploration in ways you can service satellites in the future, build satellites and build structures on orbit, refuel satellites on the way to other planets, repair those satellites much like we do on that side of space station. Both humans and robots are used to maintain habitats in space. We're developing technologies that can be used by NASA and others to make those a reality.
The International Space Station is the perfect testing ground for technologies that will be used to propel humans farther than we've ever gone before. The station is helping us build the necessary foundation to make it possible. Outside of the International Space Station, space can be a lonely place. Most satellites are designed to live their lives alone, and we've yet to find life outside of Earth. This means that when we launch a spacecraft or satellite, for the most part it's on its own, and has a limited lifespan based on when critical items like fuel run out, or something breaks. You wouldn't throw away your car if it ran out of gas, and thanks to the advent of modern-day robotics, software, and computing power, we will soon be able to apply that logic to satellites. We are on the cusp of breaking the one-and-done paradigm that exists for most satellites. An important step in that direction is NASA's Robotic Refueling Mission, or RRM, demonstration on the International Space Station. Because refueling a satellite that was not designed to be refueled has never been done before, practice is key. With that in mind, the first 2 phases of RRM took place on station from 2011 to 2017 and tested the tools, technologies, and techniques to refuel and repair satellites in orbit.
RM and RM Phase 2 were designed to demonstrate end-to-end refueling of a spacecraft, as well as the first steps of cryogenic refueling or replenishment. We wanted to use the robot on the International Space Station to be able to demonstrate the technologies and techniques to do this refueling, so we built innovative tools to bridge the gap between the robot and the payload interfaces.
Consisting of a module or box affixed to the outside of station and robotic tools, the demonstrations use station's Dexter robot to operate tools and test servicing tasks such as cutting and peeling back protective thermal blankets, unscrewing caps, turning valves, transferring fluid, inspection, and intermediary steps leading up to refueling.
Once we were all done, we were able to transfer fuel end-to-end through a spacecraft fill and drain valve that wasn't designed to be robotically refueled.
The RRM demonstration helped test and prove technologies that will make refueling satellites not designed to be refueled possible, something that will be further demonstrated by NASA's On-Orbit Servicing, Assembly, and Manufacturing 1 mission. But it also helped to lay the groundwork for designing future satellites in a way to make them more easily serviceable.
These missions were important because we needed to demonstrate in orbit that this technology was ready. There were a lot of people that felt that at the time of RRM that the technology was so far in the future that they didn't feel what we were talking about was possible. So we needed to demonstrate in orbit this technology so that we could start changing the paradigm and incorporate these technologies into the future spacecraft designs and missions.
RRM Phase 1 and 2 were all about preparing an interface for refueling, which in many ways is half the battle. To robotically refuel a satellite, you need to perform a series of highly dexterous tasks to even access the valve. The next step is to actually perform refueling tasks, which is what the next phase, RRM3, has been demonstrating on station over a series of operations since 2018. RRM is a critical piece of the sustainable spaceflight puzzle that helps us with the ability to robotically refuel, repair, and maintain satellites in both near and distant orbits, well beyond the reach of where humans can go today. For generations, Mars has beckoned. Now, the red planet is within our reach. But how do we get there? The key is in the details, and in the technology. First and foremost, you need fuel. This is not only true for getting to Mars, but for any form of deep space exploration. Being able to replenish fuel on a long-duration journey means massive amounts aren't needed up front, freeing up space for other important things. Enter Robotic Refueling Mission 3, or RRM3 for short. This demonstration launched to the International Space Station in December of 2018 and has helped us develop tools and techniques needed to replenish cryogenic fluid in space. Transferring cryogenic fluids has never been done before in space. These super cold fluids can be used as propellants, coolants, or for life support systems. Being able to replenish these fluids that run out, otherwise known as consumables, is an important part of the sustainable exploration roadmap. Not just for Mars, but for NASA's Artemis program, which will land the first woman and the next man on the moon. Since refueling cryogenic fluids in space has never been done before, RM3 tested the technologies and techniques needed to make that possible. First, we sent the RM3 payload and its 3 main tools to Space Station, where astronauts assembled the parts.
When I was living aboard the International Space Station in the spring of 2019, I was fortunate enough to take part in the very small part in the Robotic Refueling Mission 3. And my job was to unload the components of the actual RRM3 from one of our visiting vehicles, and we take it into our Japanese experimental module, the GEM, where we have an airlock. And right inside of the airlock, we unpacked all of the boxes, much like you would a piece of furniture that you had to assemble yourself at home. So unpacked all of the pieces, we did a checkout. We worked with the ground, we got everything assembled, and then we placed it into the Japanese airlock. And from there, we were able to put it outside of the International Space Station. So my involvement in RRM-3 was the physical final assembly of the actual components.
RRM-3 was delivered to the space station by a SpaceX Dragon on the company's 16th Commercial Resupply Services mission and installed on the outside of station by the Canadian robot Dexter. Dexter then picked up the tools from the JEM airlock and installed them onto the RRM-3 payload. The ground operations team was now ready to begin operating the 3 tools to test how they would work in space. For the first set of operations, conducted in August 2019, Dexter used one of the RRM-3 tools to prepare the RRM-3 module's interface for transferring cryogenic fuel. The second set of operations was then conducted in October 2020. For these, Dexter used one of the remaining 2 tools to insert an 11-foot-long hose in an open port and the other snake-like camera inspection tools simultaneously to verify the hose's position in the inside of RRM-3's tubing. This marked the first time that Dexter had tools in both arms working the same tasks simultaneously. The RRM-3 demonstration added experience and information to NASA's knowledge base on the storage and transferring cryogenic fluids in space. It is currently still on station where it will conduct one final set of operations in mid-2022. For getting to the Moon, Mars, and beyond, cryogenic fluids will be used as propellants and to maintain life support systems for astronauts. The Mars atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide, which could be converted to liquid oxygen, a type of cryogenic fluid that can be used both as propellant and for breathing. Astronauts may be able to fuel rockets or replenish their oxygen supplies using compounds found in the Martian atmosphere. A tool on the Mars Perseverance rover called Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, or MOXIE, is set to demonstrate the first ever conversion of Martian carbon dioxide to oxygen, which is another important piece of the puzzle. In order to make a sustained human presence in space a reality, humans and robots will have to work together using technologies like those developed by RRM-3 and MOXIE.
A lot of people ask about, whose job is exploring outer space? Is it robots or is it humans? And I believe that it requires teamwork between robots and humans, and that our exploration is not complete or even possible without both. So robots can go farther, they're less expensive, and they can go for longer periods of time. They don't require as much maintenance. You don't have to feed and care for a robot, much like you do if you send me back to space. So like the Mars rovers, the Galileo that explored Jupiter and its moons, the Hubble and the soon-to-be James Webb Space Telescope, they are doing missions in locations that humans to this point don't have the capability to go. There's also something very important about humans wanting to know what it's like to be there. It's not enough for humans to take a picture of Mount Everest or Antarctica and say, oh, okay, that's what it looks like. The human condition is we are born to explore. We're born to say, what if? What's just beyond what we know? And what is it like to be there? And so the human side of space exploration, first of all, it's orders of magnitude closer to Earth. We have not been able to send humans nearly as far as we've been able to send robotic probes. But they're 2 very different missions, and they serve a different type of curiosity.
Mars and deep space are calling human explorers, and RRM-3 is a step toward helping NASA answer that call. Though it sounds complex, the idea is simple. Having the ability to refuel will allow NASA to embark on longer journeys to explore the depths of our solar system. Did you know there's a 3-eyed raven currently perched on the International Space Station? Not an actual bird, but rather a technology payload that is helping NASA develop a relative navigation system, or autopilot, for spacecraft. Launched to station in 2017 aboard a SpaceX Dragon on the company's 10th Commercial Resupply Services mission for NASA, and installed on the outside of ISS by station's Dexter robot, Raven is equipped with 3 distinct camera vision systems: visible, infrared, and LiDAR. Combined with NASA-developed software algorithms, This rotating module of technology keeps a weather eye on arriving spacecraft. Raven's head, containing its 3 eyes, or cameras, is always on the swivel, which is made possible by its integral gimbal.
Raven is an on-orbit test bed that was built to mature technologies related to relative navigation sensors and algorithms. Raven was launched to the International Space Station aboard a SpaceX Dragon capsule in February 2017. And it's been operational on the space station since that time. So using 3 different sensors on Raven that are on a movable gimbal platform, Raven can track the incoming visiting vehicle to station all the way from very, very far away, all the way up to where they dock with the space station. So basically, at any given time, Raven can tell you where the incoming visiting vehicle is in space relative to the space station and what attitude or pointing direction it is.
Raven sends the data it collects from tracking and observing incoming spacecraft to its processor or brain, called SpaceCube. This information then tells Raven how it needs to move to continue to track the spacecraft and gauge relative distance and positioning. NASA engineers have taken what they've learned from multiple Raven observations over the years to adjust and fine-tune the relative navigation system as needed, so it's ready for the upcoming on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing 1 mission, which will robotically refuel a satellite, among other things.
Raven is a sensor system that can image an object, process those images on board in real time with advanced algorithms, then calculate the pose of the object relative to itself.
These factors come together to create something like spacecraft autopilot. Much like a self-driving car can maintain cruise control based on the speed of the vehicle it follows, 2 free-flying spacecraft will be able to dock with one another using this technology. Though this operation is similar to the autonomous docking of visiting spacecraft to station, Raven's unique application is necessary for docking 2 satellites with the challenges of each moving and rotating in every direction during the rendezvous and docking phase.
Using that information to then guide the first spacecraft to autonomously rendezvous with and dock with the second spacecraft. So that means finding it in space, aligning with it appropriately, and then bringing the 2 vehicles together without smashing them into and destroying each of them, all without human intervention.
This capability is the kind of thing you need for docking with spacecraft that were not originally designed to be docked with and serviced, which happens to be a vast majority of them. That's why Raven's time on station is critical for the future of on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, or OSAM. The OSAM-1 mission will use Raven's relative navigation capability to autonomously, meaning no humans involved, rendezvous and dock with the satellite, and then telerobotically refuel it. This will be the first time in history a spacecraft not originally designed to be serviced will be refueled as a means to extend its operational life. Raven is also important for future exploration missions.
Raven's technologies can be applied to future NASA missions because if humans want to make a footprint in the solar system beyond low Earth orbit, which is where the International Space Station is located, we're going to have to rely on some form of autonomous docking technologies in the future. Whether it be an unmanned cargo vehicle meeting up in orbit around the moon, refueling tankers located in geosynchronous Earth orbit, or a return vehicle arriving on Mars in advance of a crewed landing, all of these feats will require the technology we're developing with Raven.
Using its 3 eyes, Raven is looking to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
Relying on highly robust autonomous systems becomes more crucial the further you move away from Earth as the communications time increases drastically. Once you move past low Earth orbit, it becomes very impossible for humans on Earth to do these highly complex maneuvers in real time. It's more efficient to allow computers to perform these sequences autonomously without human intervention.
Although Raven has successfully concluded its main mission objectives, it remains on station. Meanwhile, its team on the ground is using what they've learned to develop more never-before-seen technologies that will enable future space exploration.
Before I started digging in that other bag, here you go.
No problem.
If you need to fix something in space that wasn't designed to be fixed, it's going to take all the experience you can get. With that in mind, when the International Space Station's Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or AMS, needed repairs, NASA's Johnson Space Center and Goddard Space Flight Center used their joint expertise to make it happen. At Goddard, that expertise resides in NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Division, or NEXUS, which evolved from the office that was responsible for the Hubble Space Telescope servicing missions. Key to these missions was the development of specialized tools. While you've probably heard of Hubble, you may not be as familiar with AMS, so let's start there. Designed for a 3-year mission of sifting through cosmic ray particles, AMS has been looking for signs of dark matter from its position on station since 2011. Hundreds of researchers have used the data collected to investigate the source of the mysterious substance to help us better understand the origins of the universe. To continue this important data collection, AMS needed an upgrade due to general wear and tear from the harsh environment of space, specifically a new cooling system. A repair could extend its life beyond what was originally planned. Sounds easy enough, right? In fact, due to the instrument's complexity and the fact that it was not designed to be repaired, even gaining access to the system to replace it was difficult. AMS's design did not incorporate the kinds of interfaces that make spacewalks easier, or have the ability to be serviced with traditional multi-purpose tools. And so, over the course of 4 years, NASA got to work designing and developing some of the most complex spacewalks since the Hubble servicing missions in the 90s and early 2000s to fix AMS.
The AMS tools themselves were unique. They were built specifically for this task, a task that was never intended to be performed on a spacewalk. And so that required a lot of thinking about how we were going to get inside so that we could access the tubes that we needed to cut into and then install the new thermal control system, but also how to put handling aids on it so that we had a place to attach our tethers, to attach our foot restraints, to have handholds, have a place to attach equipment that we needed out there.
NASA developed 20 specialized tools to make the job possible, and on November 15, 2019, astronauts Andrew Morgan and Luca Parmitano got to work. On this first spacewalk, astronauts needed to get access. By design, 5 of the tools could be seen floating off into space, attached to the debris shield that was removed to give the astronauts access to the heart of AMS.
The debris shield handling aid was one of the first tools that Luca installed on the EVA, and this gave us a handhold to install on the debris shield to work from, but also a handle for me to hold on to ultimately when we jettisoned it overboard to the aft side of the ISS, which was a lot of fun to do.
The astronauts continued with 3 more spacewalks over the next 2 months, using all of the specially designed tools. One such tool was the Tube Cutting Guide, which was a direct result of multiple practice sessions at Johnson Space Center facilities like the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. While practicing, astronauts communicated the need for a way to identify and verify the correct tubes to cut, since they all look the same to the astronauts' eyes within the spacesuit.
After we had removed the debris shield and the VSB cover, now we have the tubes exposed, and we actually had to cut into those tubes in order to pull out the correct ones to connect with the new thermal control system, the new pump. In order to do that, we had to be very sure of the tubes that we were cutting. These ingenious tube cutting guides installed over the top of the tubes and made sure that we knew and we were communicating correctly with the ground team to make sure that we were cutting the correct tube at the right time.
In January 2020, Luca Parmitano and Drew Morgan completed the 4th and final spacewalk to repair AMS. Because of their work and the ingenuity of tool designers and engineers, the instrument is now back in commission and able to continue to collect data about the origins of our universe for years to come.
People from Goddard and JC spent a lot of time developing these tools with their knowledge and the support of astronauts like Chris Cassini. And we are very thankful that we were privileged to use those tools and to put them to very successful use. Thank you very much.
extremely exciting. In my lectures, there are always young people in the audience, and they always want to know when they're bringing it back, you know. And I always say, I don't think ever. I think NASA, you know, they realizes that they have two marks, so to speak, but somehow they can be made to coexist. We had to analyze what had been done by NASA in the past. Finally, we realized that we had to have a uniform. Fire, something that was very strong, hold it all together. So over the process of working on it, over the sort of timeless approach that we brought to this, space is about the future, and if we can still hang in there, and if it still represents that, then it's quite a victory, I think. You know, aesthetics aside, the goal was to do that, to hold up for decades, and apparently it's still, it's got better legs today than it did then.
Failed to surprise, dazzled our eyes. Now dive to Saturn, vaporize.
In 1997, an ambitious international mission launches to Saturn that would, for the first time, attempt to place an orbiting spacecraft around the planet and land a probe on a moon in the outer solar system. But it was a mission that had to fight its way just to reach the launch pad.
Our Congress has had some agony over the program. We're going to have to operate under a very strict fund ceiling and an unyielding schedule.
We are all going to have to strive for, as we go through this process, is a continual search for the least unacceptable solution.
The journey to Saturn took 7 long years, and being captured into orbit depended on what would happen during just 3 hours.
We chased everything that could go wrong down the rabbit hole. We went down every path of, if this goes wrong, what do we do? If that goes wrong, what do we do?
All stations on net, SOI systems. Just an advisory, we're coming up on the time that the critical sequence will initiate the turn to the SOI burn attitude.
This was one of those moments where you're either in orbit or you're $1 billion flyby.
Flight is what now?
Go ahead, SOICOM.
The Doppler has flattened out.
With Cassini safely in orbit, science quickly took center stage, beginning with dazzling images of Saturn's rings.
I'm surprised at how surprised I am at the beauty and the clarity of these images. They are shocking to me.
Investigating Saturn's iconic rings will be just one part of what will turn out to be 13 years of discoveries about the Saturnian system. And what will be realized about Saturn's moons will even transform how we think about our solar system and open up new pathways for the future of space exploration.
Around one planet, we find 2 moons that could potentially have the key ingredients to support life.
Triumph at Saturn. Next. Live with the World.
And you're watching live coverage from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. Tonight, the Cassini spacecraft has its first close encounter with Saturn's largest and most intriguing moon, Titan. This is the closest we have ever been to Titan, and over the next 5.5 hours, we hope to see the best images we have ever seen of Titan. And here on NASA TV, you will see those images just minutes after they actually arrive on the ground.
And right on cue, the images began streaming down. But it quickly became apparent that Titan wasn't ready for its first close-up.
We have just received exciting word that we have the first image in.
Okay, so this looks like, boy, it takes a bit of processing to bring out features.
What appeared at first glance to be black and white smudges left scientists and viewers alike puzzled as to what they were seeing.
Look at that. Look at that. And we don't know what it is.
Anything stand out in your mind at this point?
Yeah, it's been a very strange evening. If you put me against a wall and said what's cloud and what isn't cloud, I really couldn't tell you. I assume that much of this is surface features. Yeah, these are low contrast. I'm not really sure what we're looking at here.
With us now is Torrance Johnson, one of the imaging scientists, to kind of give us the overall, what does it mean?
Well, I think first off, the main thing that tonight's meant for us is we've had a very successful encounter. We're really looking at a great haul of data here. And well, you saw some of this stuff coming in. There's clearly stuff to be seen there on that surface. Understanding it's a different issue. And one of the things that all of us on the project have been talking about for a long time is this sort of cooperative science approach. We knew Titan was a tough target, was going to hold its secrets tightly, and so we designed this mission and the experiments to hit it with everything we've got. This is our first chance to do that, really. We're really going to have to do a full-up, complete body scan of Titan to figure out what's going on.
This encounter confirmed that Titan would be as complex as it was obscure. Fortunately, there are many more Cassini flybys still ahead. But next up to explore Titan is the European Space Agency's Huygens probe that will try to descend all the way to the moon's surface.
The procedure here is pretty standard. We're going to follow right through the MOP. The idea is a series of brief reports from
8 weeks have passed, and it is the eve of Christmas Eve as leaders of the Cassini-Huygens team hold a go, no-go meeting on whether to release the Huygens probe.
We had 2 opportunities to update this, one at the Titan flyby.
There are no known technical issues with which to contend, making this meeting mostly a formality.
And cleanup. Navigation has flown a precision trajectory, so there was no need for us to make any updates.
Tracking data has been absolutely excellent lately. DSN has been doing a really good job, and Julie's team has doing a marvelous job. She has given us recently really great maneuvers, so without that...
Yeah, don't jinx it, Jerry. Don't jinx it.
I'm just raising my expectations.
There go the pagers.
I know, yeah. Because I jump because the pager goes off.
Based on what we've heard here from the representatives of the people that did the work, it's very clear that the orbiter JPL part of this team is ready to proceed.
The probe team is also ready to go, so we are green for tomorrow. So let's go. Okay, well, let me just add my enormous thanks from the European side for the terrific collaborative effort on the US side. It's just been great to be working with you, and I think we're all very appreciative, and so let's go.
Okay, we are a go. Very good.
Southwood's remarks were heartfelt. As 4 years earlier, the mission had faced what seemed an unsolvable problem, a design flaw found on Huygens' receiver located on the Cassini spacecraft. An in-flight test revealed the receiver was incapable of adjusting to Doppler shifts, changes in radio frequencies. That would leave Huygens' data nearly worthless. A major fix required a hands-on solution. Impossible to do with the probe a billion miles away.